Reflexive verbs in Portuguese describe an action where a subject acts on itself. In English, we can say, I wash myself. She dresses herself. But in Portuguese, this meaning is expressed with reflexive pronouns, which can change according to who is doing the action. To identify reflexive verbs, we can find the word se at the end of infinitives with a hyphen, and common verbs are acordar-se, levantar-se, lavar-se, vestir-se, pentear-se, barbear-se, maquiar-se, deitar-se, sentar-se, despir-se. In context, we conjugate the verbs according to the subject, while the reflexive pronoun also changes. The reflexive pronouns are me, che, se, nos. The pronoun se is used for você, ele, ela, vocês, eles, elas. So verb conjugations distinguish the subject. Let's use an example verb, like lavar-se, to wash oneself. To conjugate lavar-se in the present, we follow a subject, then a reflexive pronoun, and then the conjugated verb. Eu me lavo. Tu te lavas. Você se lava. Nós nos lavemos. Vocês se lavam. As we can see, se disappears from the infinitive and becomes the appropriate pronoun. Now we can see some examples. Eu me acordo às 7. Ela se levanta cedo. Nós nos vestimos rapidamente. Eles se deitam às 10. Regarding the structure of reflexive verbs, it's important to note that not all verbs are always reflexive in English. Portuguese likes to use constructions in places where English doesn't use myself, yourself, etc. Instead, English will use different verbs but keep the same meaning, like Eu me levanto às 8. I raise myself at 8. Naturally, it's better to say I get up at 8. Another example is Eu me chamo Alex. I call myself Alex. Instead, it's better to say my name is Alex. So the reflexive word se doesn't always mean oneself. This nuance matters because some Portuguese verbs can be used normally and reflexively, unlike English. Chamar-se, arrepender-se, lembrar-se, esquecer-se, comportar-se, sentir-se. Such verbs are used more as a reflexive unit, creating similar meanings, like Ela se sente bem. She feels good. Eles se comportam bem. They behave well. Moreover, reflexive pronouns can represent different meanings for several constructions, like reciprocal actions. While reflexive actions can stay true, reciprocal ones happen when se means each other rather than oneself, specifically with plural subjects. Some examples are Eles se abraçam. They hug each other, literally. Nós nos ajudemos. We help each other, literally. At the same time, Portuguese has a special use of reflexive verbs with body parts, where definite articles are used with pronouns. Portuguese uses reflexive verbs with articles because pronouns already tell us whom the body part belongs to. This idea emphasizes the person receiving the action with a pronoun and the body part with an article, if the action requires a body part. In other words, Portuguese separates the idea of ownership from an object, whereas English puts them together. Instead of saying, Eu lavo minhas mãos with a possessive, it's better to say, Eu lavo as mãos. I wash my hands, so the article specifies the body part. Other examples are: ela escova os dentes. She brushes her teeth. Eu penteio o cabelo. I comb my hair. Furthermore, we can understand the dialect differences between European and Brazilian Portuguese. Reflexive pronouns are largely the same, but their placement can differ. Brazilian Portuguese commonly places the pronoun before the conjugated verb. Eu me levanto cedo. But European Portuguese commonly relies on a concept called enclisis, which basically means that reflexive pronouns are attached to the end of a word so that they share one stress. Levanto-me cedo. Both mean I get up early, but their placement in speech makes the difference. Additionally, it's possible to attach pronouns to infinitives, like é importante cuidar-se. It's important to take care of yourself. It's also possible to put them before, like vou me levantar. I'm going to get up. This gives a useful pattern of a conjugated auxiliary verb plus a reflexive pronoun plus an infinitive. Even so, pronouns can also work with gerunds in progressive constructions. Estou me vestindo. Ela está se preparando. Estamos nos acostumando. While the pattern is simple, it's possible to attach a pronoun to the gerund itself, but this is more prevalent in European Portuguese. Estou vestindo-me. Ela está preparando-se. The last thing to know is reflexive verbs and verbs that are inherently pronominal. What this means is that some verbs can exist without a pronoun and not be reflexive, like eu lavo o carro. I wash the car. Eu me lavo. I wash myself. But some pronominal verbs exist with se as part of their normal pattern. In a phrase like eu me arrependo, I regretted, me cannot be removed. So, not every verb that ends in se means verb plus oneself. Finally, some reflexive verbs are used with prepositions, like lembrar-se de, to remember, esquecer-se de, to forget, preocupar-se com, to worry about, interessar-se por, to be interested in. When learning such verbs, it's better to memorize the whole pattern. In conclusion, the big picture behind Portuguese reflexive verbs comes down to 4 categories: truly reflexive actions, reciprocal actions, pronominal verbs, and expressions that do not translate literally. Once you recognize these categories, reflexive verbs become more natural, especially with the word se having multiple constructions in Portuguese, which is a topic for the next video.